In this video we're going to produce an application which has got a button here, and if I click that button it's going to give me what we call a toast, which you can see appearing down here momentarily, printing out hello. Later on we'll build the project from scratch, but we can just take a look and see at the completed project and see in the individual bits and pieces. First of all, let's take a look. We'll work from the inside out. We're looking at this toast down here. Now this toast is the actual thing. When I click the button, it's the actual thing which appears down here saying hello. It just lasts for a short time, and that time can be adjusted by making this length short, for example, will make it appear. And this is the for less time, and this is what the text which actually appears. As you can see, when I click my button it says hello. And now this thing here is what we call a context. It's the sort of thing that's going on at the moment, if you like, and the thing which is going on at the moment is the activity of this screen, which is called an activity. At the moment it's a main activity, but it could be another activity if we made another screen, which we'll do later on. So that's the idea. You'll come across this quite a little bit confusing. What is a context? A context is like the English meaning of it. It's sort of what's happening at the time. And obviously we've got the make text method as well, which will do what it says. It will make the text, which is here. Okay, so that's the toast, and of course then we have this show method, which ultimately will show it. When I click the button, it'll show the toast. Okay, so that's a very simple way of getting a little message box, if you like. So working from the inside out, you can see we've got this method here, which is called on click. Well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it, that that's going to get called when we click the button and produce the toast. This view here is what actually called it. Now get this word view. View means it could be a text box, or they call them text views. It could be a button, it could be a radio button, and so on. So it's a little bit strange, but that's what we call all those things. They're called views. Now this is the on-click method. Now what's this stuff here? Well, this is basically the outside of that. The set on click listener is more or less registering this on-click method. In particular, this thing here is actually an interface object. Do you remember what an interface is? Interface is a way of specifying that you've got to have something in your program, and in this case it'll specify that you've got to have an on-click method. So in short, that's the code which will operate your button basically, and I'll show you how to produce the button in the first place later on. Notice that just take a look at this little parenthesis here, and when I click on it, notice that it matches up the one down here. So all of that stuff in between those two blue things is the code which is inside those two parentheses. So a little bit tricky, and there's your final semicolon to end the line. Right, so working out once more, we've got now my button equals that. Now what's that? Well, we've defined a button as to be a button object, and that button object is used. Remember how we did this is the coupling, if you like, between the XML. So let me take a look at the XML file. So after I've rearranged it, that's how it can look. Now the important thing to notice is how do we liaise between this code and this code, and the answer is through the button ID. If you look at the XML, you've got this button 1, and you might recall from a previous video how we can set that property. Well, we can actually set it from here if we like, but notice here though, this is in the code. This is how you liaise, if you like, between so what we've done is picked up the ID of this button over here in the XML, and therefore we've got access to that. We've defined or declared a button object, and therefore we can set that button object. Keep in mind that it is an object and will have properties and methods. Well, here's a method down here that's attached to it. So it's an object, and the way we get that object is to use this our old friend find view by ID, which remember was a method belonging to this particular class. We inherit from this class, so we're able to use all its methods. So here is indeed one of those methods. The other one, remember, was onCreate as well, but the find view by ID gains the ID, find the view by ID. So it finds the view object, which indeed is my button. The other thing to notice is the imports that we've got here. So this import here is the import or the library for all of the code which uses the button. And that is actually, you need to type that in yourself manually, but there's a way of making it appear automatically, which I'll show you. Here the toast, you see that's the library which corresponds to our toast object down here. And the text view, we don't actually need that. In fact, I'll delete it because I've got rid of the text view. Well, it's going to complain here as well. Perhaps I better get rid of that code as well. But I'll show you what I really mean by that, and we'll build this program from scratch. So I'll stop my program, and I will therefore got a blank screen over there, you see. So I'm going to close this project and start from scratch and make a brand new Android. So I'll start a new Android project. You can do this, of course, and we've got an empty activity, and we'll click on the next, and we'll call it whatever you like, my button program. Okay, and the usual stuff. We've got the AP19 at the moment, so okay, we'll click on finish and start our new project. Okay, so that should take a little while, so I'll pause the video. So once again, it's produced a basic program. We've got a main activity, which is our Java file, and the activity main XML. So those two files will always appear for an empty activity. But so if I'll go ahead and run this code, and I'll pause a bit as well. So you can see the result, and that is the screen. It produces hello world, but I don't really want that hello world in there, so I'm going to eliminate it, and I'll show you how. If we open up our activity main XML, this file here, we'll double click on that, and we should be able to see the code. If I expand it, that is, a little cross up here, so I'll expand my code and just control with that middle mouse wheel to make it a bit bigger. You do recall how I arranged to do that. You look back one of the videos how I can arrange to make that big through the settings. Okay, well this looks like this is contracted as well, so I'll expand that. In fact, that's what I want to delete. You see, this is the code for producing the text. I think I'd like to see my text box at the same time. You can see on the very right hand side there's a little thing called preview. I'm going to click on that, and you can see that expands that window, and you can see my text box in here. We'll just see it. Perhaps I'll just control with a space, control middle button once again to bring that up again. But this is quite interesting because I could actually press the delete key on this thing here, or I could actually just go ahead and delete that code for the text view. Well, maybe I'll just press the delete here and see what happens. I've got that highlighted, so hey, bingo, how about that? So it gets rid of the XML as well. So by the way, at the moment over here I've got the project window showing with that little tag on the very left hand side of the project. I could click that. That makes that window appear and disappear as well as you wish. Okay, now up here, remember we had the run button. Oh no, what's all this here? Run the app, run change, apply changes. Well, you can actually run the app from here, which is a sort of a short circuit way of running it, which doesn't build comprehensively. So that it might be, well, let's give it a try. Sometimes it doesn't work if you might need to do a full run, but I'll give that a try and see if that quickly brings up my screen. I'll just pause once again, and eventually we can see the emulator appearing, and you can see that it's actually quite blank. If you look there, we've lost our hello world. So I mean, that's a more fundamental program, and that's the one they should really call an empty activity. So the first thing I want to do is to put a button on the in the design view. So I need to get my design view. To do that, I can click on the very bottom left of that XML window down here, and then I can click on design, and no component selected. Well, I will what have I got? Constraint layout. If I click on that, and I need to find the actual design itself, there it is, hidden away there. So this is my blueprint. It's pretty blank looking at the moment. So after a bit of clever vertical window splitting, I can see the actual design as well as the XML, which is rather nice. So what I'm going to do is to put a button on the blueprint. Do you remember you can get, if you want, you could have both of those appearing if you want to, but I think in this case I'll just look for the blueprint. That's nice, we can see that quite clearly. So what I'm going to do is to click on a button up here and drag it onto my design view. Now if you're not careful, that'll run away. When you run your program, I'll tell you for sure it'll jump up the top. So we need to constrain it. So I think the best thing is to, let me see, I think if we click on this little wand wizard thing up here, I think that infer constraints. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So that's all we need to have this thing held in place. Indeed, if I run it here by clicking the green triangle thing, then we should find that it should appear. Here we are. It appears, and it's just got a button. It doesn't do anything. So I can click the button and nothing's going to happen. But we'll see what we can do about that. But while we've got our XML file here, I notice it's got an ID of button. Well, that's a bit too generic for me. I'm going to call it button 1 so we can pretty well identify it. So now we need to write our code. So I guess we don't need the XML files for the moment, so I'll close those and I'll open up my project window over here, and I'll go to my, remember in the Java, in here is the main activity Java. That's the one we mainly deal with, and you remember what that does basically. It creates, so when the program first starts up, it creates it creates an activity, as it says. Take a look at the import statements that we've got. This one basically relates to the bundle that we're producing here. So this is standard code. You're going to see that pretty much all the time, but we are going to write our code. So I'll just click. Notice that's contracted there. If I just click on it, it should show what's inside. So I've explained this before. That basically just sets up the window that this activity. Okay, so what we're going to do is to type some code in here to operate whenever we click the button, and it's a little bit tricky, so you need to pay attention. You could just type it in longhand, but I'm going to show you some shorthand ways of doing it. So first of all, I need to create a button object, which I do by private and then using the button class to create my own little button. The next thing I'm going to do is to relate that button to the XML like this. So this is the button object, of course, the same as this. We're going to use this find view by ID. Remember, this is the coupling between this and the XML, and this is the actual ID of the button. But what I'm going to do is to do this slowly, because it's quite tricky code. So so let's see how if I type M, oh, that's nice. So up comes my button. Now, do you remember what came next? It was going to be my button and then equals. So I could double click on that. I could even press the tab key. But what I'm going to do, to be quite clever, is press the equal key. Right, so that puts that in as well. And now I'm going to start typing find view by ID. Now once again, that looks pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do though is to press the open parenthesis, which is also quite nice. If we get a bit lost and we lose our drop down, press the Control and space bar. Should bring some of those drop downs back. But remember what came next? It was R. Now R stands for resources, and one of the resources is an ID, which I'll just type like that. And then, do you remember what came after that? It was button 1. So I could simply click on button 1, and I think I can say double click, can't I? So if I double clicked on that, and then I can put my semicolon and breathe a sigh of relief. That's got that particular reference to the button. Remind you what code we're trying to get. I will cheat a bit here and just paste it in, because this is what we're trying to achieve. So I'll just do a Control Z to get rid of that, because we're going to do it slowly. But look at the first bit, my button, full stop, set on click listener. So let's see how that works. So if I type in my button, well, an M, well done. So now remember what came after that, it was a full stop, wasn't it? So I'll press a full stop, set on click listener, that looks quite nice as well. But what comes after that? Could we press the open parenthesis? Let's see. Yes, we're doing fine. Set on click listener. And then if you remember in here, we're creating a new interface, as a matter of fact. Now there's nothing coming up now. Let me try Control Spacebar. There we are. And remember, it was indeed view on click listener. So I think I can click on that, double click on that. How about that? It produces the rest of the code automatically. That's exactly what I want. Now what I forgot to mention was that these things up here, look how these have been produced automatically. Now I have showed you how to adjust the settings. If you look back on the other video, if you can't, you go to the settings, and I think it's the other settings and so on, default program, starting for new projects, etc., which will make these things, these import, appear automatically. I should have brought to your attention that when we actually, for example, did this would appear automatically for the button, and also okay, so now we're on our way. What we need to do is to put our toast code in here as well. So let's see, I can just enter a few times and then I can type in. Now watch this, because we should get import come in as well, toast, and then create a new toast. Well, I'll do that. I'll double click on that. How about that? You see, this import has appeared automatically. So if I run my code, let's see what we've got here. We've got output. We can click there and you can see the toast has appeared, but hey, there ain't nothing appear. So what have I left out? I can see that I should have had some text in here, so I'll type hello, and I'm doing this while the program is running, for goodness sake. So let me see if I can apply the changes up here, even though that's not a good idea, but that seems to have worked okay. Now if I click the button, there you are, I get my little toast. So that's how we write code to produce a toast.